Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Azeem Ahmed. Azeem is the Vice President and Head of Engineering at Veho. Azeem, welcome to the show.
Thank you, JP, for having me on. Looking forward to our conversation today.
So Azeem, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a bit of a background on yourself, your journey in tech from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as the Head of Engineering for Veho?
And I'll start all the way back and then kind of bring us to where I am today. I started as a IP networks engineer in a voice over IP company while I was going to college. Did some systems programming there, worked on network switches and telephony switches. Then I switched to software engineering. And my first job right out of college was working on medical systems, mapping data from doctors to insurance companies. It was a pretty interesting gig, and it was back in the day, so it was very manual. Then I moved on to a company called Rocket Software, and that's where I would say I spent a large part of my career. I started as a software engineer there, worked on database systems, all the way from like really old databases like M204. I don't know if any of your listeners know what M204 is, but it's just worth going down the memory lane if you look it up. M204 is the database that our Social Security Administration runs on. So it's still active, still gets used, but it's a really old database. I worked on migrating data from M204 to more modern databases. Then spent the majority of my time working on tools around the databases that connected with the database engine, as well as built tooling around the database, like recovery, audit management, administration of the database, that type of thing. This was all on DB2, if any of your listeners are familiar with that. That kind of gave way to me launching into data lakes and building big data in general. And I helped build the first machine learning lab at Rocket Software, worked on the first set of products around big data, collecting all the data into a data lake and leveraging machine learning to do interesting things with that data. And during this journey, Bitcoin came out. I was fascinated by that. And I remember on one of my plane rides, I read like an entire book on what Bitcoin was. At the same time, a couple of my friends at IBM were working on blockchain networks. They tapped me when they were doing a startup to work on blockchain networks. So I spent some time there, built a permissioned blockchain network on Ethereum and had some fun working there. I worked on blockchain analytics as well. Then I moved on to LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn primarily because I wanted to see what exascale or like petabyte scale data looked like and what does it mean to run systems at that scale. I spent a couple of years at LinkedIn, learned a ton when I was there. Then I went to Shopify. I was running the data platform there, served about 600 data scientists. I joined Shopify right at the beginning of COVID. So majority of my time there was actually not in the office. Did not meet my teams for about 1.5 years after I joined Shopify. Again, it was a great journey, learned a ton about scaling systems from like 10 to 100 because there was a data platform already there and I was scaling them at a pretty massive scale. Launched the machine learning platform at Shopify, built on Anyscale and Ray. One of my buddies he was a peer at LinkedIn, and he runs the Ray open source engineering team. So he connected me to that team, and then we ended up building the machine learning platform on Anyscale and Ray. Then I joined Veho, been here for about 2 years.
Thank you for sharing. But you mentioned after Shopify, you made the transition to Veho. So first and foremost, tell us all about Veho, who you are, what you do, mission of the business.
So I lead engineering here at Veho. And the mission of the business in kind of a elevator pitch is shipping is the new shopping. And we want to be able to create the best experience for consumers, driver partners, and our clients. So consumers today, when you think about the entire logistics space, once the product is bought, the experience that the consumers get is generally speaking subpar, right? Because everybody focuses on the checkout, everybody focuses on how well that goes, but there is the entire post-purchase journey of the package that impacts how the consumer thinks about the brand. and whether the consumer will come back to order another package or even enjoy the package that they're getting. And Veho is in the business of making that better. That starts with getting the logistics right, getting the table stakes right. So that's what we're focused on. We started with last mile, which is perhaps one of the hardest challenges in this space. Then we extended ourselves to middle mile, and we have a network today that covers all of the eastern United States. We're not in the western United States yet, but we'll get there one day. And most of our deliveries are next day or second day. That's what we do today. And we have created an experience for the consumer that's akin to Amazon, but Amazon is our, I would say, floor. We want to do a lot more than that. But we do believe Amazon has done some good stuff in this world, and they have created an experience for brands. When a package gets delivered, you get notification, you know where the package was delivered, you get a picture. That happens in my neighborhood all the time, where somebody will post an image of a picture they got from Amazon saying, hey, this package was delivered at the wrong address. Did anybody else get it? Do you recognize this? So people are able to get their packages, and oftentimes when it does get delivered, you get a picture and you know where it was delivered. So we went on to build that experience. We have already built that experience, and our brands love it for that. Our brands generally don't ship on Amazon because they don't want to dilute their brands. And given that, we think there's a lot of opportunity up front in continuing to innovate on the consumer experience beyond just delivering a picture when the package was delivered. Thinking about, like, we just released a perfect placement feature, which allows our consumers to use our app to take a picture of where the package should be, annotate it, if necessary, put a geo pin exactly where they want the package to be delivered, and our drivers will show up and deliver the package at the exact spot. The other thing that we do that's perhaps different from other carriers is we leverage a crowdsourced Uber-like model for delivering the last mile packages. And that's been very successful for us. If you think about other companies, they have a bunch of trucks that sit by the warehouses because depending on the day, they may or may not have enough packages to fill all those trucks. We don't have that problem. Our teams today build the best routes possible the night before. We release it to a marketplace. Our drivers come and sign up for those routes. And the next morning, they come pick up the packages and drive those routes and drop them off. So that's what we do. And we've extended that to now middle mile as well. Our clients can inject packages anywhere in our network, and we can practically take it anywhere else.
Amazing. I want to jump straight into the technology side of things here, because obviously to try and provide a service akin or better to Amazon, given the resources and money they have to throw at modernization of technology, it's really an interesting space that you're operating in, and obviously technology led. So as the head of engineering, walk us through what you and your team are doing that's unique, that's allowing you to provide this level of service, such a high quality. And if we focus on the AI components of it, where and how is AI helping you accelerate the service, do more, better, faster?
So let me actually focus on non-AI parts, which are not a ton, and then I'll talk about AI. So there's like a bunch of non-AI things here, right? There's things like the mobile app that the driver uses and how they drive to their route. That's like a solved problem. We leverage technology, whether it's Google Maps or something else. We can leverage that, and then we can get them to the right spot that they need to be at. The mobile app for the consumer is a similar kind of, there's just a bunch of table stakes things there that we need to build. So all of that stuff our teams have built. The more interesting thing here is, I would say, on the optimization side. And it's not, like, when you think about it, optimization research is not necessarily machine learning, although machine learning can be a part of it. There is just a ton of complexity there if you think about it. We're getting packages that are geo-placed across around our warehouse in a lot of different places. And we want to build the best routes that are optimal for the driver experience. Like, they're not having to go from one part of the town to another part of the town to another part of the town. But also they're great for our business because the drive time, if you can maximize the number of packages delivered in a given drive time, it will be beneficial for our business. So it's a very hard problem from that perspective that our data science teams work on, and they build the right set of algorithms to build the right set of routes. So that's an area where I think there's a lot of focus and research that the team is focused on. A second area is marketplace for the drivers themselves. When our driver partners are coming and they're looking to get the route that they want to drive, there's a lot of personalization that goes in there that we're building out now, which does leverage machine learning models to enable the drivers to find the best routes that they would they are likely to both enjoy and deliver successfully. And this driver experience that we talk about is part of our mission. We want to make sure our driver partners are getting the best experience as they pursue what they want to do. And this becomes a job that they like doing. So that's another area. The third, there's a couple more areas that I won't go too detailed into, but there's a lot of opportunities around the transportation network and how we run that, or how we run the trucks between our facilities and how we pack them, how we manage utilization on those trucks. There's lots of opportunities around how we run our ground operations, how we manage labor on the ground. All of those is work that ties into machine learning. So this is more of classical AI, I would say, not generative AI. Like, that's been the hype more recently. The places where we are looking at leveraging generative AI and things like that, our support function is something where we're currently evaluating and seeing like how can tech that's more recent, especially advancements in the generative AI space, will help us. Fairly nascent there. We're still testing out what would make sense and not make sense. Ultimately, like, we care a ton about customer experience, and we want to make sure that doesn't get degraded in the process of adopting a new tech that's out there. There's also opportunities with using these generic, like these LLMs to rate different things that we get. This is a multimodal problem. Like, we get text messages, we get images. There is a direct line of communication to consumers. Consumers can send us messages, they can drop geopins, they can send us text messages, they can send us instructions, they can tell us this is the gate code. They can tell the driver, like, it's hard to find my house, so I want you to go this way and then that way and then like make a left here. All of that needs interpretation, and today that's being done by a human being. It requires a ton of human judgment, and we're looking to see if we can leverage some of these models that can take multimodal inputs and create a summary of that for the drivers and kind of short circuit some of the manual work that needs to happen there. The other really interesting thing that we're looking at, which I'm actually super excited about, and I think it's I'm not sure if anybody else has done it, is anytime you're releasing software that has like a human component to it. Definitely true on ground ops and facilities. Let's say we updated our tech for scanning packages or we introduced a new workflow. Today, we have to go through a bunch of training. We build videos for everybody who's on the ground to understand how to use our tech. And at least an assertion or a theory that I have is advancements like this are a huge opportunity for us to shift left. And I think generative AI particularly gives us an opportunity to not just shift left within the engineering framework, but shift left in industry. Shift left is, for those of the listeners who don't know what shift left is a term used in engineering often to compress the timeline that you have from an idea to shipping the code and testing it in production, launching it in production and getting value from it. As an example, if you have a development cycle, you have a QA cycle, and if you merge those two, you have shifted left. Similarly, you might have a security sign-off. If you merge that back in with development, you have a shift left where everything is happening together and you've improved what comes out to begin with, so you don't have gates afterwards. That same concept applied to an industry, applied to launch of a software that requires a ton of training afterwards. We're currently exploring what can we leverage generative AI to launch a feature and at build time automatically produce videos and training material that another team doesn't necessarily have to go spend a ton of time building. Now, of course, we're not there yet. There's a lot to be done there, but I'm excited about possibilities like that, which I think speaks to the core engineering workflow and how do we create value for customers faster within the realm of engineering, particularly all the other things that need to happen post-build. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to spend a little bit of time, Azeem, talking about the team that you've assembled and that you oversee, particularly focusing on the components that you've just mentioned, utilization of AI and machine learning. Can you give us some insight into the team structure dynamics? I know in your introduction you mentioned the overall size, but help us look behind the scenes and talk to us about the working culture that exists there. We want to give our audience and our listeners a bit of a look behind the scenes of what it's like at Team Veho.
Yeah, so this is actually a favorite topic of mine. A thing that I learned when I was at LinkedIn and at Shopify is there's this chasm that develops over time between engineering and data. And it's not like on purpose. Nobody has bad intentions, right? But generally speaking, engineering teams over time have built a culture of DevOps, and they know how to, they have a rigor around DevOps and testing and whatnot. And data science has a bunch of rigor around data, but systems engineering is not something that data science folks normally do. And a hypothesis I have is that when you bring those two folks together, and like going to the discussion that I just had on shift left, if you merge those two disciplines, I think we'll have better outcomes. So one of the things that we have done at Veho is engineering and data work together. And they don't just work together. Data science reports into me, engineering reports into me. Data science teams have their own managers that kind of are focusing on the craft of data science, but they're part of a project, they're part of a team. It's a cross-functional team. So they've got engineers, data scientists together, running rituals together and doing everything together. And there's back and forth that's happening between those two teams, and they're running in an embedded fashion. So we run all of our data science and engineering teams. We have a project that we need to run, and we know what data science needs the project has, and we know what engineering needs a project might have, and there are contributors for the project, and they're across all these teams, including like design and product and whatnot. And they run together and they solve problems together. And oftentimes engineers will dive into data science components and they will ask questions about it, and they have some very good discussions. And similarly, data science folks will jump into, okay, so you're doing this for CI/CD. Can I be part of that? Can we improve the way we do things in data science to do that? So it's been actually, I think it's been a fairly successful experiment for us. The other thing that's been valuable here is one of the problems that I saw both at LinkedIn and Shopify, and I think this is not like a ding on the company, like both of the companies are really great, but it's a natural outcome when engineering teams are separate from data and the organizations are separate all the way to the top, is the engineering teams are running towards building a product, and that's their focus. That means they might be changing schemas and they might be changing data in a manner that impacts downstream data systems, but it's usually an afterthought. And it's not on purpose. Like I said, nobody has negative intentions here. Everybody has priorities and focus, and people are focused on their priorities. And different companies solve it differently, right? Some companies just solve it reactively. Some companies will set up committees to make sure schemas are not changing the wrong way. There are also tools being built around these entire things, so people just are aware of what schemas are being used where. But beyond all of that, the most important thing here is, again, having the developers be thinking about, like a data scientist, and thinking about the impact of data on business. Similarly, having the data scientists thinking like developers and thinking about, how do I actually improve iteration and velocity for the business, for the product, by leveraging techniques on the data science side that will make this a simpler job. So I would say from a cultural perspective, the partnership that we have between engineering and data science has been a huge success. And it's the way we have structured the teams is reflects this ethos that we need to work together and build together and shift value together, right? It's not like we have a separate thing that's going to happen in data. And that's true for our data infrastructure teams as well. If there is a project where we know we have to build new infrastructure, I think most recently we had a project where we had to spin up entire new infrastructure around personalization. And we embedded some of our data platform team members directly as part of the product team. And that's how the project ran. They got together, they shared rituals, and they're all focused on shipping the thing that improves the business. And I think that's been wonderful. We don't have a QA team. That I would say is the other thing that I remember when I initially joined Veho, there was a discussion on, should we have a QA team? We were a small team. And again, my philosophy generally is helping develop a mindset that allows us to not build a gate is what we focus on, right? So instead of building gates, just help people up-level themselves and be thinking about those things. You're not going to get the same output that you would get from a subject matter expertise. Like a QA engineer that knows how to do QA really well can probably catch a few additional things post-build, but a developer that has a QA mindset will catch probably 60 to 70% of those things. And that's usually good enough in production.
We've talked quite a bit now on the team, which I think is a great segue into where I always like to finish these conversations. Final question from me is, when you're speaking to candidates, people who either you and the team have approached or who have come into Veho, when you're speaking to candidates that you feel could add value to the Veho team, what is it that you tell them about the team, the mission, the environment that gets them excited enough to join you guys over some of the other great companies also?
Yeah, so I will say about the team and about the mission, like our mission is really important. We're trying to disrupt an entire space here that's generally been a legacy space of logistics world. So I think there is the opportunity for impact is huge. That's one thing I tell everybody. A second thing I do tell about the team is we have a couple of values that I think resonate with me deeply and resonate with the team really well. One is making today count. We always care about making today count. So I think the thing that you will learn coming to Veho and working, perhaps you may not in other places, is there's this drive to create impact today, not just create impact. What that means is in terms of how we build and how we ship our systems is I talked to the team about this concept of putting the marshmallow on top first. So and I'll wrap up with this 30 seconds. There's this research experiment that it's a team building exercise of building a marshmallow tower, right? You've got spaghetti sticks and you put a marshmallow on top after that. Oftentimes when you give that to the teams, most teams will build a tower first, and then the tower is really tall, and then finally they put the marshmallow on the top and the tower topples over because the tower is not built for the marshmallow. In building systems and shipping value, our marshmallow is our customer. Right. So if we put the system in front of the customer before we have built the entire system, like if you build the simplest possible tower, put a marshmallow on top, that tower is going to stand, and then iterate on the tower. That's the philosophy we want to use. And you will see that across all of engineering. We try to drive that home every single time we talk to anybody in the team, is put the marshmallow on top first. Build a system that might be hacky, that might not be the long-term thing we want to build, but put it in front of the customer, tighten the feedback loop, learn from what the customer is saying, and then iterate on the system.
I love that.
It's like a mindset shift, and like it's easier said than done, to be honest. And it requires every engineer to be thinking differently, every member of the team to be thinking differently.
Azeem, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. This was a pleasure. Great to learn about your background, great insight into the world in which you and your team are creating at Veho, and a tremendous opportunity for you guys to disrupt a space that has a huge market cap. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Veho the very best of luck in the months and years to come, and look forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you, JP. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.